Lyra stood at the edge of the wide ceremonial grounds, trying her best to keep her hands from shaking. Her silver eyes watched the tall alien pillars rising on all sides, glowing softly with blue patterns that marked the traditions of her people. All around her, young Valorians waited to be chosen for bonding. Some were excited, some nervous, but all of them had one thing. Lyra did not have confidence that someone would pick them. She stood alone. Her long silver hair fell down her back, hiding part of her face as she tried to make herself smaller. Lyra did not want people to look at her. Every time someone looked, they judged her. She could hear the whispers again. Just like every year. She still has no awakened ability. She will never bond. Why is she even here? Lyra felt those words like small stones hitting her heart. She wanted to believe she was strong enough to ignore them, but she wasn't. She had never been. From her childhood, everyone expected Valorians to awaken powers. Some controlled light, some could shape energy, some could sense danger. But she never awakened anything. Her clan tested her again and again, but nothing happened. In the end, they simply said she was too weak, too quiet, too ordinary. She swallowed hard, trying not to show how much it hurt. At the far end of the grounds, a small group of off-world guests watched the ceremony. Among them was Ethan Hale, a young human engineer from the Galactic Union. He had been sent to Valorian Prime to fix their damaged shield generators. Humans were not common on this planet, and many Valorians barely glanced at them. But Ethan watched everything carefully. His blue eyes full of curiosity. He noticed Lyra almost immediately. Not because she looked strange or different, but because she carried a sadness that made her seem out of place among the proud warriors around her. She kept stepping back, giving space to others, always trying to avoid getting in the way. Ethan had seen people like that before, people who learned to shrink themselves because the world kept pushing them aside. Something about her quiet loneliness made him keep watching. Lyra's name was called. She stepped forward, her steps slow but steady. A group of potential suitors walked past her, examining her profile displayed on the glowing screen. As soon as they saw the word, abilityless, they walked on without a second look. One of them even laughed softly, not caring that she could hear. Lyra kept her head down. Her voice was barely a whisper. "No one wants to marry me." The words were not meant for anyone else, but Ethan heard them. He felt something twist inside his chest, an uncomfortable mix of frustration and sympathy. It bothered him to see someone being treated as if they had no value just because they were different. The ceremony continued. Every young Valorian was chosen except her. When the final match was announced, cheers rose in the air, and families hugged their chosen pairings. Lyra quietly stepped out of the circle, unnoticed, like a shadow slipping away. Ethan could not stop himself. He followed her. Outside the grounds, she sat alone on a low stone bench under a large glowing tree. The light from its branches made her silver hair shine softly. Lyra held her hands together, staring at her lap. She didn't cry, but she looked like someone who had forgotten how to hope. Ethan approached slowly so he wouldn't startle her. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. Lyra lifted her head in surprise. She didn't expect a human, someone who had no reason to care, to speak to her. Her voice cracked as she said, "I am fine. You don't need to worry." But Ethan could see she was not fine at all. "I heard what you whispered," he said softly. "You said no one wants to marry you." "That's not true." She turned her face slightly away. "It is true. I have no power. And Valorians only value people who are strong." Ethan shook his head. "Strength comes in many forms. You stood there alone, even though everyone doubted you. That takes courage." Lyra looked at him with confusion. No one had ever used the word courage for her before. She didn't know how to answer, so she stayed silent. Ethan sat a short distance away so she wouldn't feel uncomfortable. "You know," he said with a light smile, "where I come from, we don't choose partners based on power. We choose based on heart, character, kindness, things that actually matter." Lyra blinked slowly. "Humans, In good ways, Ethan replied. At least, we try. For a few moments, they didn't speak. Lyra watched the glowing branches above them. She felt something strange, something warm spreading inside her chest. No one had ever talked to her like this. Not even in her own clan. This human didn't mock her. He didn't look at her with disappointment. He looked at her as if she mattered. "Why are you being nice to me?" she asked quietly. "Because you deserve kindness," Ethan said. "Because someone should be nice to you." Lyra lowered her eyes again, but this time it wasn't from shame. It was because she didn't know how to handle a feeling she had never felt before being seen. Before she could respond, a group of Valorian young men passed by. They paused when they saw her with a human. One of them smirked. "Look at that. Even the humans pity her." Lyra froze. Ethan stood up and stepped in front of her, blocking their view. "Enough," he said firmly. "Walk away." The Valorian men looked offended but surprised too. Humans weren't known for confronting Valorian warriors. "Who are you to interfere?" one of them demanded. "A man with basic respect," Ethan replied. "You should try it sometime." The young men clicked their tongues and walked off, muttering insults, but they didn't dare push further with a Union officer present. Lyra stared at Ethan with wide eyes. "Why did you do that? They are stronger than you." "I don't care," Ethan said simply. "You shouldn't be spoken to like that." His voice carried a sincerity she couldn't ignore. She finally stood up, her voice barely audible. "No one has ever defended me." Ethan gave a small, warm smile. "Then I guess I'll be the first." Those words alone were enough to make her heart feel unsteady. She didn't understand him, yet she wanted to believe him. "Lyra," Ethan said softly, "you don't need to stay in a place that treats you like you are nothing." She shook her head. "Where else would I go?" Ethan looked directly into her eyes. "Come with me." Her breath caught. She stared at him, completely still. She had never imagined anyone saying those words to her. Not a friend, not a suitor, not even a stranger. And here stood a human, someone her people considered weaker, offering her something she thought she would never have. A choice. Lyra stepped back slightly, unsure. "You don't even know me." Ethan nodded. "Not yet, but I want to. And I think you deserve a chance to be somewhere people appreciate you." She felt her throat tighten. Her mind was full of doubts, but her heart felt a tiny spark of hope. "I don't want to be a burden," she whispered. "You won't be," Ethan said. "I promise." Lyra looked at his extended hand. She had two choices: to return to her empty room, her clan's disappointment, her people's judgment, or to take the first step toward something new. Something that might finally feel like home. Slowly, with trembling fingers, she placed her hand in his. The moment she did, Ethan's smile grew brighter. "Good," he said softly. "Let's go." As they walked toward the human outpost, Lyra glanced back one last time at the ceremonial grounds. The place that had always reminded her she was unwanted now felt far behind her. Each step she took beside Ethan felt strange, but also calm. A tiny voice inside her whispered that she might finally be moving toward a life where someone saw her as more than a mistake. For the first time, she didn't feel completely alone. And for the first time, she allowed herself to hope. Lyra followed Ethan through the quiet path leading to the human outpost, her steps small and unsure. The air felt different here, lighter somehow. She kept glancing at Ethan, unable to understand why he walked beside her, as if her presence meant something. Her people never looked at her this way. They always walked ahead of her or around her, never with her. Ethan, however, stayed at her side the entire time. She wondered if she should say something, but the words felt trapped in her throat. Ethan noticed her silence, yet didn't push her to speak. He simply let her adjust at her own pace. That small kindness alone made her chest feel warm. When they reached the outer boundary of the human base, Lyra paused. The shimmering blue shield around the outpost hummed softly. Humans walked inside, carrying equipment, laughing, talking openly. Their movement was so relaxed compared to Valorian warriors' rigid style. Lyra felt as if she had stepped into another world. "Are you nervous?" Ethan asked gently. Yes, she whispered. It's okay, Ethan said. Everyone here is friendly. They won't judge you. Lyra wasn't sure she believed that, but she took a deep breath and followed him through the shield. The change was immediate. The inside of the outpost was warm, full of different smells, food, metal, energy tools. Humans talked loudly compared to Valorians, but their voices didn't carry cruelty, only life. A group of engineers noticed them entering and waved at Ethan. One of them, a cheerful woman named Mira, smiled when she saw Lyra. This must be our guest, Mira said brightly. Welcome. Lyra froze, unsure how to respond. Mira didn't seem bothered by her silence. Instead, she gently offered a warm drink. It's okay if you're shy. I like quiet people. Lyra blinked. Quiet people? On her planet, being quiet was considered weakness. Here, it seemed perfectly normal. Ethan guided her to the common area. Humans of different ages sat around tables, discussing work or enjoying simple food. No one stared at Lyra the way Valorians did. Instead, they nodded politely or smiled a little before returning to their tasks. Lyra turned to Ethan with confusion. They don't care that I look different? Ethan laughed softly. Humans work with so many species across the Union. No one here sees being different as strange. She didn't know how to react. All her life, she felt like an outsider. And now, here, among humans, she seemed to blend in without any effort. Ethan offered her a seat. Sit, rest a little. You've had a long day. She sat, hands folded tightly together. Ethan placed a small fruit bar in front of her. Try this. Humans eat them when we're busy. Lyra picked it up slowly, studying it. Is it safe? Ethan smiled. Very safe. And sweet. You might like it. Lyra took a small bite, and her eyes widened a little. It was simple, but comforting. Ethan watched her reaction with a gentle smile. You see, he said. Humans aren't so bad. She felt her face warm slightly. You are very different from what we were taught. What were you taught? Ethan asked. That humans are soft, she said quietly. Emotional. Weak compared to Valorians. Ethan shrugged. Maybe all of that is true. But sometimes, softness is strength, and emotions can be good. She considered his words. Maybe humans were not weak, they simply valued different things. For the first time, Lyra allowed herself to relax. She listened to the voices around her, feeling a strange sense of peace. No one expected anything from her. No one judged her for her abilities or lack of them. Later, Ethan guided her through the outpost. He showed her the workshop where he repaired shield generators. The small garden humans grew for fresh food, and the library filled with data pads. This place is warm, Lyra said softly. Not cold like home. Ethan glanced at her. Were you unhappy there? Lyra hesitated. Not always. But I was alone. Even when I was with people. They looked at me with disappointment. She touched her fingers to her chest, and I felt that disappointment every day. Ethan slowed his steps. I'm sorry, Lyra. No one deserves that. She looked at him, confused again. Why do you say sorry? You did nothing wrong. Maybe not, Ethan said, but someone should have cared earlier. Lyra lowered her head. She wasn't used to someone treating her feelings like they mattered. She wasn't sure how to handle it. Yet she didn't want it to stop. As they continued walking, Lyra heard two engineers arguing over a broken tool. Their argument wasn't angry, it sounded almost playful. She watched as they laughed seconds later, already forgetting the problem. You humans are strange, she whispered. In a good way? Ethan asked. She nodded slowly. In a good way. As evening approached, Ethan took her to a quiet resting area with soft lights and simple beds. He pointed to one corner. You can stay here. It's clean, safe, and no one will bother you. Lyra touched the soft blanket. On Valorian Prime, her room had been empty, cold, and bare just enough to sleep. Nothing more. Here, even a simple bed felt like a gift. You don't have to be afraid here, Ethan said. And you don't owe anyone anything. She turned to him, her voice barely a whisper. Why are you helping me so much? Ethan paused before answering. Because you deserve kindness. And because I want to. Lyra stared at his face, trying to read his intentions. She only saw honesty. Before she could say more, a sharp tone echoed across the outpost. A Valorian delegation had arrived. Soldiers stepped through the shield, tall, armored, proud. Their leader, a stern lieutenant, scanned the area until his gaze fell on Lyra. There, he said coldly. The unpaired girl. She belongs to her clan. She will return with us now. She will return with us now. She will return with us now. Lyra stiffened in fear. Ethan stepped in front of her instinctively. She's not going anywhere unless she wants to, Ethan said. The lieutenant laughed harshly. Human, do not test us. This girl is clan property. Lyra felt her breath break. Property. That word hit her like a blade. She had heard it before, whispered cruelly. But spoken openly here, it felt worse. She trembled behind Ethan. No, Ethan said firmly. She is not property. She's a person. The soldiers narrowed their eyes. Move aside. Ethan didn't move. Other humans in the outpost noticed the tension and gathered nearby. Mira stepped closer, her expression serious. A few engineers stood ready, though none were armed. One Valorian soldier moved forward to grab Lyra. She flinched, terrified. Ethan raised his arm, blocking the soldier's path. Don't touch her, Ethan said. The lieutenant glared. You are a human engineer. You have no authority here. Maybe, Ethan replied. But I'm still not moving. Lyra's heart pounded so loud she felt dizzy. No one in her life had ever stood up for her like this. Ethan wasn't strong like a Valorian warrior. He wasn't trained for combat, yet here he was, facing soldiers without fear. The lieutenant stepped closer, his voice low and threatening. She comes with us. Now. Ethan didn't flinch. Ask her, he said. If she wants to go, she will. But if she doesn't, you're forcing her. And that is wrong. All eyes turned to Lyra. Her voice shook. I don't want to go. The soldiers growled in disbelief. You would choose humans over your own kind? Lyra stepped slightly out from behind Ethan, though she still trembled. They treat me better than you ever did. Her words hung heavy in the air. The lieutenant clenched his fists. This human is influencing you. He has no right. Ethan spoke calmly. She made her own choice. Respect it. The soldiers prepared to force their way in. Lyra's body tensed. She didn't want violence. She didn't want Ethan hurt. The outpost lights flickered as if reacting to her fear. A strange energy rippled through the air. Soft, but noticeable. Lyra gasped and stepped back. Ethan turned to her, concerned. Lyra, are you okay? I don't know, she whispered. The energy around her shimmered faintly before fading. She couldn't explain it, but something inside her had stirred a warmth she had never felt before, awakening slowly. The Valorian soldiers stepped back, confused by the strange pulse. This is not over, the lieutenant warned. We will return with authority. They turned and left the outpost, leaving silence behind. Ethan let out a slow breath and looked at Lyra. Are you all right? Lyra nodded weakly. You should not have done that. They could have harmed you. Maybe, Ethan said with a small smile. But I wasn't going to let them take you. Lyra felt her eyes sting with emotion, but she held it back. She didn't want to cry. Not now. You protected me, she whispered. Ethan shook his head. You deserve to be protected. She looked away, feeling her heart beat faster than before. She had never felt this kind of safety. Not even once in her life, and she wasn't sure she ever wanted to lose it. Lyra could not sleep that night. She lay on the soft human bed, staring at the ceiling lights that slowly dimmed as the room entered rest mode. Her thoughts spun in circles. The Valorian soldiers had left, but their words remained heavy in her mind. They wanted to take her back. They believed she belonged to them. They believed she had no right to choose her own path. But she had chosen. She chose Ethan. She chose the humans who treated her like a person. She chose a world where her voice mattered, even if she was still learning how to use it. Yet fear still lingered. She worried that the soldiers would return, stronger and angrier. She worried she would cause trouble for Ethan. And most of all, she worried about the strange pulse of energy that had come from her body earlier. She had never felt anything like it. She pressed her hand against her chest. The warmth was still there. Soft but steady. Could it really be an ability? Something awakening inside her after all these years? The thought frightened her, but it also filled her with a quiet hope she didn't know how to handle. Her door slid open softly. Ethan stood there, holding a small cup of warm tea. "Couldn't sleep either?" he asked. Lyra sat up quickly, embarrassed that he saw her awake. "I didn't want to disturb anyone." Ethan smiled gently. "You don't disturb anyone. I just wanted to check on you." He handed her the tea and sat on the chair nearby. Lyra took a sip. The warmth flowed through her body, calming her shaking hands. "Today was scary," Ethan said softly. "But you handled it well." Lyra lowered her gaze. "I was very afraid." "That's normal," he replied. "Being afraid doesn't mean you're weak." His calm voice felt like a shield around her heart. She had spent her whole life believing fear was failure. But Ethan spoke like fear was simply a part of being alive. "Ethan," she whispered, "you could have been hurt because of me." "I know," he said with a small shrug. "But I would do it again." Her breath caught. She didn't understand how a human she barely knew could show her that much care. She didn't understand why he risked himself. She didn't understand why he looked at her like she mattered. But she wanted to understand. "Ethan," she asked quietly, "why do you care so much?" He looked at her for a moment, thinking. Then he spoke, in a gentle voice. "Because I've seen people feel alone before. I've seen how much it hurts. And when I saw you standing there, trying to disappear, it didn't feel right. No one should feel like they have no place in the world." Lyra's throat tightened. She did not cry, but she felt close to it. No words came out, so she simply lowered her head. "Try to rest," Ethan said as he stood. "Tomorrow will be better." She nodded and watched him leave. For the first time in her life, someone's footsteps walking away didn't make her feel abandoned. Because she knew he would return. The next morning, the outpost was busy. Humans repaired equipment, checked energy panels, and shared reports. Lyra walked beside Ethan, watching everything with wide eyes. She remained quiet, but she no longer felt invisible. Humans greeted her with soft smiles. Some introduced themselves. No one mocked her. It felt unreal. Mira approached them with a tablet. "Ethan, we have a shield malfunction on the East Tower." Ethan nodded. "I'll check it." "Lyra, wanna come?" Lyra looked surprised. "Me? Sure," he said. "I can teach you how humans fix things." She followed him up the metal stairs leading to the tall tower. The wind brushed her hair gently. For the first time in years, she felt a lightness inside her. Not happiness exactly, but something close. Ethan explained each part of the shield emitter, pointing and demonstrating. Lyra listened closely. She liked how humans explained things not with pride, but with patience. "You learn fast," Ethan said after a while. Lyra shook her head. "I'm just paying attention." "That's a skill too," he replied. While they worked, Lyra noticed her hands were steady. She didn't feel the nervousness she usually felt around Valorians. With Ethan, she felt safe enough to try things without fear of failure. They finished the repairs and climbed back down. But their peaceful moment didn't last long. A loud alarm echoed across the outpost. Ethan stiffened. "They're back." Lyra felt cold fear run through her. She didn't need to ask who they were. She already knew. At the entrance, the Valorian delegation returned, but this time with more soldiers, senior officers, and 2 council representatives. They looked furious, ready for confrontation. The lieutenant pointed at Ethan immediately. "Step away from the girl." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Her name is Lyra. She is coming with us," one council officer said. "The Queen has been informed. Until she arrives, Lyra must return to her clan." Lyra shook her head, stepping back instinctively. "No," she whispered. "I don't want to go." The officers ignored her words completely, as if she hadn't spoken. Mira and several humans gathered behind Ethan. Tension filled the air. The Valorians were stronger physically, but humans were not afraid to stand together. The lieutenant stepped forward. "Human, you cannot protect her from us." Ethan took a breath and stood his ground. "I will protect her as long as she chooses to stay here." Lyra's hands shook. She felt a storm of emotions inside her: fear, anger, hope. No one had ever defended her choice before. No one had ever stood between her and danger like this. Something in her chest pulsed again. A Valorian soldier approached, reaching out to grab her. Ethan stepped in front of her. The soldier pushed him aside with one arm. Ethan stumbled but didn't fall. He looked at the soldier with firm anger and stepped back to shield Lyra again. "Don't touch her," he said. "Move, human," the soldier growled. Ethan's voice did not break. "No." Lyra felt her heart squeeze painfully. Watching Ethan stand there small compared to the armored warriors, unarmed, outmatched, was too much. Fear for him filled her body like fire. "Ethan, stop," she whispered in panic. "They'll hurt you." "I'm not letting them take you," he said without looking back. The soldier raised his hand again, ready to shove Ethan harder. Lyra's fear exploded. A wave of shimmering energy burst from her body without warning, spreading like a soft shockwave. The air glowed around her in pale silver light. The soldiers were pushed backward several steps, not violently, but firmly, unable to come closer. Gasps filled the outpost. The Valorians stared with wide eyes. Humans stepped back in awe. Lyra stood trembling, her hands glowing faintly. She didn't understand what she had done. She didn't even know how it happened. Ethan turned to her gently. "Lyra, it's okay. You're safe." But she shook her head in shock. I didn't mean to." One Valorian council officer stepped forward, astonished. "Her power awakened." Another officer whispered, "Impossible." She was declared dormant. The soldiers looked at her with new interest, as if she suddenly had value because of this ability. The lieutenant smirked. "Now she has worth. You should have told us sooner. The Queen will be pleased." Lyra stepped back in fear. "No, I don't want to go." "You have no choice," the lieutenant said coldly. Ethan stepped in front of her again. "She does have a choice. She just made it." The officer narrowed his eyes. "You think the Queen will allow a human to interfere with our traditions?" Ethan didn't hesitate. "If your traditions force someone to be miserable, then yes, they should be challenged." The Valorians bristled with anger, but they kept their distance now. They had seen Lyra's power. They didn't know what else she could do. Lyra herself didn't know. Her hands still glowed weakly. Her heart raced. She looked at Ethan, terrified of what she had just unleashed. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't want to hurt anyone." "You didn't," Ethan said calmly. "You protected yourself. That's all." Lyra's breath shook. She was trembling so hard Ethan gently took her hands, grounding her. "You awakened your ability," he said softly. "That's a good thing." "No," Lyra whispered. "It's bad. Now they will want me more." Ethan didn't deny it. He knew it was true. "Then we'll face it together." The Valorian officers turned away, preparing a report for their queen. The lieutenant pointed at Lyra. "The Queen herself will come for you, and she will decide your fate." Lyra's heart sank. She didn't know what the Queen would do. Valorian rulers were known for being strict, traditional, and powerful. If the Queen wanted her returned, there would be little anyone could do. But when Lyra looked at Ethan, she felt a small spark of courage inside her chest. She wasn't alone anymore. Whatever happened next, she knew one thing for certain. For the first time in her life, she had something worth protecting. Not her ability, not her honor, but the person who believed in her when no one else did. The outpost stayed tense the entire next day. Humans worked quietly, and Valorian stayed away, waiting for the queen's arrival. Lyra felt the weight of every hour pressing on her heart. She walked through the halls with Ethan close by, but her steps were slow, her face pale, and her mind full of fear. Ethan noticed. He walked beside her, hands in his pockets, speaking softly so she didn't feel pressured. "Whatever happens, Lyra, I'm here. I won't leave you alone." She wished those words were enough to calm her heart. A part of her believed Ethan, but another part still remembered years of rejection and helplessness. She had been powerless for so long. How could one day of strength change everything? But something had changed. She felt it inside her. The gentle energy that had pushed the soldiers away now pulsed faintly at her core, like a quiet heartbeat she never had before. She didn't understand it, but it made her feel awake. She looked at Ethan. "Do you think the queen will be angry?" He thought for a moment. "I don't know. But I know she'll see that you made your own choice." Lyra lowered her head. "My people don't care about choice." Ethan gave a small smile. "Maybe it's time someone changed that." The morning sun rose over Valorian Prime, and with it came the sound of large engines approaching. Lyra felt her body tense automatically. The humans looked up toward the sky. A royal ship descended, surrounded by shimmering purple lights. The vessel was far larger than the usual transports, sleek, elegant, and unmistakably important. "The queen is here," Mira whispered beside Lyra. Lyra's hands grew cold. She stood close to Ethan as the royal ship landed with a soft vibration. The ramp lowered slowly, revealing royal guards in silver armor. Their steps were perfectly synchronized, their faces emotionless. Then the queen appeared, tall, graceful, and wearing a long, flowing cloak made of glowing threads. She walked with quiet authority. Her eyes were a rich violet, sharp and observant. Her presence was calm but powerful, like a storm hidden beneath a still ocean. Everyone bowed except the humans, who stood respectfully. Lyra froze, unsure if she should bow or run. The queen's gaze moved across the outpost, then settled on Lyra. "You," she said softly, "come forward." Lyra felt her feet heavy, but Ethan gave her a small nod. She stepped out from behind him slowly. Her heart pounded so loudly, she wondered if the queen could hear it. The queen studied her carefully, not with cruelty, but with curiosity. "You are Lyra of the Silver Clans," the queen said. A girl declared weak. A girl declared dormant. A girl unwanted. Her words were not sharp, they were simply truth stated aloud. Lyra lowered her eyes in shame. "And yet," the queen continued, "you stand here, alive, and awakened." A soft stir moved through the Valorian guards. The queen stepped closer. "Tell me, child, how did your ability awaken?" Lyra swallowed. She looked at Ethan. His steady presence gave her enough courage to speak. I didn't want anyone to take me," she whispered. "I didn't want to lose the only place where I felt safe." Her voice trembled. "It awakened because I wanted to protect someone." The queen followed her gaze to Ethan. "You protected a human?" Lyra nodded slowly. The queen did not react with shock or disgust. Instead, she tilted her head slightly. "Explain." Lyra took a deep breath. "He helped me. He treated me kindly. He stood up for me. No Valorian ever did that for me. Not even once." The queen raised an eyebrow. "No one?" "No," Lyra whispered. "I was always alone. Always unwanted. Until he told me I wasn't." Ethan looked surprised by the depth of her confession. She had told him pieces of her pain, but never so openly. The queen turned to him. "Human, step forward." Ethan stepped beside Lyra, keeping his posture respectful. "You protected her," the queen said, "even though she is not of your people." "Yes," Ethan answered simply. "Why?" He didn't think long. "Because she needed someone. And because no one else would." The queen looked at him for a long moment, as if weighing the truth of his words. Then she asked, "Would you protect her again, knowing the danger?" "Yes," Ethan replied without hesitation. Lyra felt her breath catch. His answer was calm, certain, and real. There was no fear behind it, only sincerity. The queen turned back to Lyra. Do you choose this human by your own will? Without fear? Without pressure? Lyra's voice shook, but her words were clear. Yes. The queen stepped even closer, her expression unreadable. You understand that choosing a human means separating yourself from the old expectations of your clan. Yes, Lyra said. You understand that your ability may evolve differently because of this bond. I understand, Lyra whispered. You understand that your future will not be the same. Lyra looked at Ethan and, for the first time, smiled gently. I want a different future. The queen finally exhaled. As if releasing tension only she understood. She turned to her guards. Stand down. The soldiers lowered their weapons. Ethan blinked in confusion. Mira let out a relieved breath. Even Lyra seemed unsure. The queen spoke calmly. Lyra is free. Lyra stared at her, not believing her ears. Free? Yes. The queen nodded. No Valorian should be forced into a bond they do not choose. The lieutenant who had insulted her earlier stiffened. Your Majesty? The queen raised one finger, silencing him instantly. The girl is awakened, she said. Her ability is rare. It appeared not through tradition, but through emotion, through choice, through courage. The queen looked at Ethan and Lyra together. Perhaps this is what our people need to learn. Talk Diver. Talk Diver. Lyra's eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of relief so powerful she almost couldn't stand. The queen continued, her voice softer now. Lyra, you are no longer bound to your clan. You owe them nothing. Your power awakened for a reason. And your reason is standing beside you. Ethan looked at Lyra, astonished. The queen offered one last test. She raised her hand and released a stream of controlled energy, a swirling ribbon of purple light directly toward Lyra and Ethan. It wasn't harmful, but strong enough to push them apart. Ethan, without thinking, stepped in front of Lyra. Lyra, without thinking, stepped forward to shield Ethan. Their movements were perfectly matched. The purple energy struck, and Lyra's silver aura flared to life, forming a shimmering shield around both of them. The queen's eyes widened. So it is true. Her bond has already formed. Lyra trembled, but she stood tall. Ethan placed his hand gently over hers. The room fell silent. Finally, the queen smiled, a small, rare smile, but warm. Very well, she said. The girl has chosen her path, and the human has proven his worth. She stepped back. Live as you wish. Lyra's knees almost gave out. Ethan caught her gently. You did it, he whispered. No, she breathed. We did it. The queen and her guards returned to the royal ship. As the engines ignited, the queen looked back one last time, at Lyra not with pity, but with respect. When the ship rose into the sky, the humans cheered quietly. Mira hugged Lyra so tightly the alien girl nearly lost her balance. Ethan laughed softly as the others came forward, welcoming her as if she had been part of them from the beginning. Lyra, overwhelmed, turned to Ethan. She spoke softly. I was unwanted all my life, and now, I feel like I belong. Ethan brushed a strand of silver hair from her face. You do belong, Lyra. Not because of your power, because of who you are. She looked at him with eyes full of new strength. You gave me a place to stand. You found it yourself, Ethan said gently. I just walked with you. Lyra stepped closer, her voice trembling with emotion she had never felt before. Thank you for seeing me when no one else did. Ethan smiled. I'm glad I did. Lyra looked up at the sky, where the queen's ship had vanished. For the first time in her life, the future did not look dark or empty. It looked open, bright, possible. Hand in hand with the human who believed in her, she took her first true steps into a life she chose with her own heart. And this time, she walked without fear.